Yes, the Cleveland Browns lost their second preseason game against the Washington Commanders 17-15. Yes, there are some negatives to take away from this game, but there are certainly some positives as well. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day, and I suggest you join the everyday crowd, almost 6,300 subscribers now. Subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube page, and of course, Locked On Browns is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. It was a wait. I guess all in total, about an hour and 15 minutes before the weather moved out, subsided. And, a lot of questions, obviously, were going to come from that, where the Browns going to stick with the approach of playing the majority of the starters. And, the plan stayed intact, and we still got to see the players we wanted to see. Understanding Joel Bitonio, obviously, Myles Garrett, Amari Cooper. Those guys kind of held out of action. Congratulations to Grant Delpit. Grant excused for everything yesterday, obviously, as Grant went back down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to get his degree from LSU. So, you know what? That's pretty impressive. And obviously, for Grant's big congratulations. Obviously, a lot of goes into that type of stuff. It's always nice to see a man, fulfill something like that, walk away with his paper. Getting to the game itself. Deshaun Watson, obviously a first drive. Deshaun completed 3 passes, ran the ball 3 times for yards. Pretty crisp, pretty decent drive. Elijah Moore, 2 touches, 24 yards, as everybody saw. Obviously a big run, 18-yard run. And they kind of went back and kind of seeing some of the things that they're doing with Elijah Moore here. And so I went back and kind of made sure that kind of the timeline kind of made sense. And what you see with Coach Stefanski and some of the things that they are trying to do with, obviously, with Elijah Moore, similar to what they did in Minnesota when Coach Stefanski was there with Percy Harvin. Just trying to take somebody that you view as a fantastic athlete and basically trying to set up numbers games, where, you're putting him in space and, athletes usually win. Elijah did leave the game early, bruised ribs. The feeling is that maybe he will not be a part of things this week. And we'll get to more about, as the Browns are going to travel to Philly for joint practices and obviously the third preseason game Thursday night at the Link in Philadelphia versus the Eagles. For me, again, it's really, really hard to even, not talk about this young man anymore and all that he has done to this point. And I've done a couple of radio spots over the last few days and talking about, obviously, Dorian Thompson-Robinson to this point through 2 preseason games, 17-21 throwing the ball, 184 yards, 2 touchdowns. So that would be 3 touchdown drives that DTR has been a part of thus far for him. It's been really, really impressive work by the young man. And, I will say it. I said when they drafted him, I would play DTR over Josh Dobbs in a heartbeat. Everybody, and look, we all like Josh Dobbs. He's a great gentleman, great human being. But Josh Dobbs hasn't played football. He hasn't played a lot of football for years now. DTR is coming off basically where he played almost 4 full seasons at UCLA. Still, when Chip Kelly came up to him towards the end of his final, what Chip thought, he was like, well, what's going on? And DTR was like, well, I'm going to stick around for this final. And last year, Coach Kelly felt he didn't need to. And obviously, Chip Kelly has NFL experience. But, Dorian just wanted to make sure that he felt he was 100% ready before he took to the league. And I got news for you. This is the Browns' number 2 quarterback. If you're going to go one-on-one, Josh Dobbs versus DTR, it's a runaway, kids. DTR is just that much significantly better. Dobbs did play yesterday, 8 of 16, 1 interception. Kellen Mond, I thought, had a much better game. I still don't think there's a chance Kellen Mond makes this roster. Not so much dinking and dunking. They actually gave him a chance to actually throw the ball a little bit more. Touchdown pass was beautiful, beautiful placement to Mike Hurley for a big score, that ended up making the game close, of course. Browns ran 71 plays last night. Threw the ball 41 times, ran it 30. They did not run the ball with as much success as they did in the first preseason game against the New York Jets. But that 41 passes, This team is going to throw the ball, and it's going to throw the ball a lot. And granted, it was only one drive with Deshaun Watson, of course. But those numbers are going to pick up. Deshaun Watson is going to get a big opportunity here this year with this team to throw the ball around. And it's going to be interesting because they did say for the Philly game, most likely it's only going to be starters that play Thursday night. The Browns' majority of the work they're going to get is in the joint practices, which would line up the final preseason game where, obviously Deshaun Watson probably going to get about a half of work after just one drive last night. That should have led to points. And we will talk Cade York in segment 3. I think it is a big enough topic that needs to be discussed here. DeJuan Jones, again, a really solid effort. You just see the potential in this guy. And the Browns are going to have a problem. They're really going to have a problem because DeJuan Jones is going to deserve playing time. He did not play in the left side, which is something I thought that maybe they were going to give him the opportunity to do. He excelled on the right side. His footwork, it's crazy because he has this incredible length. And pass rushers going against him kind of have to, make a really staunch effort to basically get the heck out of his way. But the problem is his footwork is so good that he can catch up to these guys. So you match the footwork with the length, and you really got a phenomenal player here. And to this point, look, credit to Coach Callahan, credit to everybody in the building, and obviously credit to DeJuan Jones himself. You talk about young guys putting in the work. You talk about young guys showing commitment. This is really starting to happen for DeJuan Jones. And we're seeing a pretty big rise here really quickly. So we'll see the way it plays out here and, what the plan is going to be going further. But the Browns are in a really nice situation here with him. Obviously, Luke Whippler as well. Michael Dunn had a couple of nice reps last night as well. Obviously at reserve guard. Wyatt Teller. When Wyatt Teller is healthy, he's one of the best in the business. Don't confuse yourselves. It is just that simple. Some guys just, their play drops significantly when they are injured, meaning that they are good enough to play, but, certainly hampered. Wyatt Teller is one of those guys. Jack Conklin has always been one of those guys. The potential for these guys is through the roof when they can stay healthy. It's a really difficult thing to do in the NFL, obviously, but when at full health, when at 100%, Wyatt Teller is just an absolute beast. Also Watkins Jr., second week in a row, led this team in receiving. Certainly helps him, behooves him coming over from the XFL. So he's really in like tip-top football shape right now. But 2 for 35 last week. 6 for 71 this week against Washington. In a wide receiver room, where, look, Anthony Schwartz, it's difficult. I just feel for Anthony, but I think we all see the writing on the wall that's coming. Still no Marquise Goodwin, obviously, and other guys, dinged up or whatever at the wide receiver position, who are trying to compete. It's going to be really hard for the type of, production that Watkins has put into this point in the preseason here. For him not to make this 53. I understand he's really just an X. He really can't play inside, and maybe that's something the Browns are going to work on over the next couple of weeks. But, when your job is to catch the ball when it's thrown to you and you continue to catch the ball when it is thrown to you, it is something to be noticed. It is something to be, respected. And to this point, obviously, Watkins Jr. has done a really fantastic job for this team. A guy that, we weren't expecting to be talking about at this point. Late addition due to the injuries, due to the issues, but a guy who's really stepped up here. So, for me, DTR, certainly somebody that really impressed me. Again, DeJuan Jones continues to thrive. Elijah Moore, even though it was only 2 touches, 24 yards, that Percy Harvin impact is what the Browns are going for here with this guy. So let's see the way that this continues here for, obviously, Elijah, who's done a really good job to this point. We're going to switch it up here. We are going to talk a little defense. We'll get to segment 3 here. Some thoughts about the next couple of days. Obviously, injuries, of course, issues with the kicker. And, that's kind of where we're at here. I appreciate everybody for being along on this ride with me here. Your latest Locked On Browns. Appreciate everybody. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Look, it's simple. You just put in what you're looking for, the job description, the education requirements, the task requirements that you need, and then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your jobs for free. Terms and conditions apply. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns, and always appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day, and join the everyday crowd by subscribing to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. The linebackers, and this is where they kind of took a hit here, but, Jacob Phillips, we'll get to that here in just a minute, 3 solo tackles. Tony Fields, 3 solo tackles. Charlie Thomas, Georgia Tech, 3 solo tackles. JOK, phenomenal for the small time that he was on the field, 3 solo tackles. This is what we're already noticing here, and it's standing out big time in the switch here to Jim Schwartz, in the switch here to getting more professional players on that defense and certainly on that defensive line. You're keeping your linebackers clean. They are free. They are flying around. They are making plays. These are things that stand out to you. These are things that were such a struggle for this team last season, where this team just got physically owned, dominated against the run. That is not the case this year. And through 2 preseason games, and it was about 4 yards per carry they gave up last night. So certainly some drop off from the effort these guys put out against the New York Jets. And we'll see, how it continues, how the trend continues here over, the next week with Philadelphia and the final against Kansas City. We'll see the way that stuff all works out. But you were starting to see the way that this stuff is certainly opening up here, and is creating the ability that the linebackers just can run free and make the plays that they need to make. And, Charlie Thomas out of Georgia Tech it's becoming a really interesting name right now because, this is last week, biggest hit against the Jets, 3 solo tackles this week, getting a lot of work on special teams. This is a guy that at worst could be a practice squad player for the Cleveland Browns, or could find a way to maybe squeak in here as the Browns try to get, a little bit cheaper, of course, younger. And they have just now lost their first linebacker for the 2023 seasons, Jacob Phillips. It's been a really, really tough run for Jacob Phillips. I absolutely adored the pick. If anybody remembers, this was a guy I handpicked to be a Cleveland Brown. And I believe I did it in I want to say it was beginning of March of that year. And every year it's just been injury after injury after injury. Second time with a torn pec, requiring surgery, season over, left last night in a sling. There is no, time for Jacob Phillips here. If he is indeed out for the season, which seems to be the word, that's it. His time here with the Cleveland Browns is over. He has no contract after this. So this was a guy that I thought had a lot of promise when the Browns originally drafted him. And now here we are. It'll basically 4 seasons over, and Jacob Phillips never really got an opportunity. NFL is a tough business. The game is obviously so physical, so physically demanding. And a player like Jacob Phillips never truly got a real opportunity here in his time with the Cleveland Browns. So Jacob Phillips, hang in there. Whatever happens, obviously, I've always been a fan. I'll continue to be a fan. And it's really, really tough when a player basically never has a break go his way in his time within the NFL. Ronnie Hickman. Now, if you all remember, and we go back to the shows right after the draft and undrafted free agency, and the Browns made this move, it's rare that you can get a guy that comes from a program like Ohio State, the LSU, the biggest programs in the country, that he ends up actually going undrafted. And Ronnie Hickman, that was the case. Ronnie Hickman had inside versatility. He had safety versatility in his time at Ohio State. These are the type of guy, when you get in this situation, that you feel has an opportunity to make a roster and basically has a pretty clear path to make a roster. Because this is a guy, normally, look, you start at Ohio State, you should be a guy that gets drafted. It's one of the top football programs in the country. First interception, we're not going to sit here and, basically, flex our muscles over that. Basically caught a punt. But you know what? We've seen a lot of those things either in our time here watching the Browns either fall into somebody else's hands and caught for the opposition, or we've seen plenty of guys just drop surefire interceptions. But he makes that play. Comes back later in the game, jumps a route, and then basically, this kind of reminded me a little bit of Martin Emerson last year against the Jaguars in the preseason, where Emerson just basically ripped it out. Ronnie Hickman did the same thing. If you're talking DeAnthony Bell, you're talking Ronnie Hickman, there's a big significant difference in age. Both play the position differently. DeAnthony Bell, obviously inside track was here last year, but look, Bubba Ventrone is a new special teams coach. Jim Schwartz is a new defense coordinator. So basically everybody starts with a blank slate here. But if you're going to tell me if it's Ronnie Hickman versus DeAnthony Bell, I'm going to take the future and upside of Ronnie Hickman as opposed to, what DeAnthony Bell could be here. Age, obviously other things like that factor into this. But really, really came away impressed, obviously, with Ronnie Hickman and the ability he put out last night. And this is a guy that I think, we'll see how far it can go here. But this is a guy that should make this Browns final roster. And Ronnie Hickman, Ronnie Harrison, both wearing 33. It's making things a little different at time. So to Mr. Hickman, I hope I continue to pronounce your last name correctly and we do not call you Ronnie Harrison. Cam Mitchell, 3 solo tackles. AJ Green left the game injured. There wasn't much to elaborate on that, but we'll see the way it comes here this week. But Cam Mitch, I think just Cameron Mitchell is going to be a guy that makes this team. I just think he's got that type of ability, versatility, a bunch of special teams reps at his time as Northwestern. So really, really nice day, obviously, for some of the reserve defensive backs here as we're starting to find a way to maybe find exactly who is going to be. Because when I do a 53, I'd usually go 25 offense. I usually go 25 defense and obviously 3 special teams. Starting to figure out maybe who those last couple of guys are that could squeak in the door here defensively for the Cleveland Browns. Zadarius Smith, you saw it early. The holding in the end zone, which led to the safety. Imagine what this is going to look like once they're on the field with Myles Garrett, Ogbaniah Okoronkwo, Zadarius Smith, Myles Garrett. We're still adding Shelby Harris to all of this, along with Dalvin Tomlinson. It's going to be a really, really nice group. Andrew Berry, whatever y'all want to say, and I know there's fans that have their issues here. This has been almost a damn piece of artwork, what he has done here this offseason. When you add in Ogbo, when you add in Zadarius Smith, you make the move for Isaiah McGuire through the draft, you sign Tomlinson, you get Shelby Harris late. This defensive line needed a real overhaul, and that is exactly what he's done. I cannot wait to see this group get more reps together. I cannot wait to see all of this group playing together. It should be a really, really fun defensive line. And again, kudos to Andrew Berry because he's done a really, really fantastic job with this group. Really, really liked the linebacker play. Really, really liked the play of the young secondary. Obviously, the defensive line, I think we're just starting to whet our appetite here for what should be a really fantastic meal of watching this defensive line play here in the 2023 season. Jacob Phillips, always been a huge fan. It's just, it's a shame. It's just terrible. Just hate it. And, the game can be cruel at times. We all understand that. But here's a guy that, basically now after 4 seasons with the Browns and never really had 1 ounce of luck or anything bounce his way. So keep your head up, young man. All the best to you here. We're going to switch it up here. We're going to talk about some of the issues. So another couple of things. What's coming in the next couple of days. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns. Love you all, everydayers, and join the everyday crowd by making sure you subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Segment 3, starting to close it out here. Your latest Locked On Browns. Browns lose 17-15 to the Washington Commanders. Friday night, Cleveland Browns Stadium. Game was an hour and 15 minute delayed. Torrential downpours. Here's actually the funniest thing. Having my weather app on Cleveland. This morning, I go look at it. And, I send a text to my wife. I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, why? I was like, oh, the weather. She's like, what do you mean the weather? I still had the Cleveland weather app on. And apparently y'all had a tornado warning out there today. She thought I was an idiot. Well, she thinks I'm an idiot all the time. But that was the reason she thought I was an idiot today. So, the weather obviously delayed the game. Browns did lose 17-15, and I saw a lot of, they would have won if Cade York had made his, Look, this is one of the most difficult things to do when you are somebody that does what I do here and doing analyzation. Look, I have thrown footballs, I have caught footballs, I have tackled people, I have been to all of this. I don't know jack squat about kicking a football. One thing I do think, and the one thing I do think that I see, that I notice, is that Cade York's footwork is not always consistent. And I'm talking about as far as where he plants his foot. Seems like sometimes his stride's long, sometimes his stride's a little shorter. And, the only thing I know, and just from listening to other kickers, is you try to be like, it's like a golf swing. You want it to be the same exact thing every time. And that is something that Cade York is struggling with right now, is having difficulties with right now. Bubba Ventrone, here you go, big boy. You're the special teams coach. Here's basically your first tough assignment. You got to work with this kid and get him right. It's not like there's a lot out there on the market. I know a name like Robbie Gould is out there, but 38 years old. It's a tough spot to be in. Is it a concern for me right now? Yes, it is a concern for me right now. Does it need to get cleaned up? Absolutely. I'm worried about the first 5 games because these are going to be probably closer games. You have 3 division games. You have the San Francisco 49ers. You have the Tennessee Titans. This is, and I've talked for a lot over the last few days about the importance of the offense getting off to a strong start, the importance of the defense getting out to a strong start because of this, what you have in front of you. These are going to be critical ball games. And, you cannot have a kicker that you can't rely on. And I'm not saying to move on from him. And I would probably start the regular season with him and say, hey, maybe it's preseason. Maybe it's the yips, whatever. But, to this point, he's having issues. He's struggling. And it's not a problem the Browns need, because they need to be clicking on all 3 cylinders, special teams, offense, and defense, certainly with, what they have to start this season and the schedule that they have in front of them. So, that's kind of where it is. And that's kind of where it's at, and, for Cade York, I hope he figures it out. He wasn't a very, very high percentage guy at LSU, but you certainly hope that, the percentage is going to get higher here. Browns absolutely need it. I don't care that they invested a draft choice in him. At the time, it was one of the biggest needs on the roster. They had no choice. They needed him. They drafted him. They need him to kick the ball more accurately. It's plain and simple. There's just no other way around it. The Browns have put out word that they're going to sign running back Jordan Wilkins. We did a little feature on Jordan the other day. 29 years old. I think it was 280 carries in his NFL career for a little over 1,000 yards. Had some good success early in his career. Then once about the time, 2020 season, when Jonathan Taylor was in the fall with the Colts, his playing time waned. His production obviously waned. The Browns need somebody to help to fill out here. The group wasn't overly impressive last night as much as it was, it was more impressive, obviously, against the Jets. Hassan Hall, fumble, lost it, not good. Demetri Felton, it's crazy to say this, and I think if anybody had asked me this a month ago, I would have laughed at you. Demetri Felton's locked. Demetri Felton is making this roster. Demetri Felton is running back 3. There is no doubt in my mind, and I'm not sure anything that Jordan Wilkins is going to do right now in the next 2.5 weeks before final cutdowns is going to change that. Demetri Felton has showed well. He has played well. Congratulations, Demetri Felton. You've been in a tough spot here. Played a bunch as a rookie. Didn't play so much second year, but now here's an opportunity, year 3. And by being a good man, by being a good guy, sticking to, what needs to be done, the opportunity is here for you. So good for Demetri Felton, obviously within, that. But Jordan Wilkins is going to come into the fold. Most likely Jordan Wilkins will get elevated to the active roster as Jacob Phillips leaves the active roster when he will go on injured reserve, which will end his season and ultimately and most likely will end his tenure and time here in Cleveland with the Browns. Browns will be traveling off to Philly. Going to go to joint practices Tuesday and Wednesday. The Browns and Eagles will play Thursday night in the Link in Philadelphia. The joint practices are good. Now, obviously, the Browns and the Philadelphia Eagles did this last year. They played again, had these practices against each other last year. The Eagles ultimately ended up winning the game that was played, but a lot was taken out of the joint practices. Look, you're going to play against a team that, lost the Super Bowl. The Philadelphia Eagles were a fantastic team last season. So to go play this game for the Browns, this is some really, really good work. You're getting in a lot of work here against a team that was highly successful. So ironically enough, the Browns' last 2 preseason games are going to be against 2 teams that played in the Super Bowl last year. So you're going to get in quality work. You're going to face quality competition here, basically to get yourself ready, for that week 1 matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll see who the Browns are going to have available. Elijah Moore will be kept out, but maybe you get Amari Cooper in, maybe not going to play in the preseason game. Will participate in the practices. For a guy like Austin Watkins, can this continue here for Watkins? Can he continue to put together, quality reps? Then it's, also the rookies here. I mean, you talk about Whippler, you talk about DeJuan Jones. You're going to get some of the best in the business. You want to talk about some of the best defensive linemen in the entire NFL. They reside with the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a chance to go get out there, get your feet wet, get yourself right. Because, you're starting to grow here. You're starting to build momentum. stack those positive days, right? Like we talk about. So to keep this momentum going, you're going to have to do it now against a team that is obviously one of the top teams in the NFC and a team that, fell a few minutes short of winning the Super Bowl last February. The secondary guys, look, Philly has got Devontae Smith. Philly has got A.J. Brown. These are quality wide receivers. So, for Martin Emerson, and we'll see if Greg Newsome's back, for Denzel Ward, you want to go against the best. That's where you get your best work. That is basically where you get, your best reward for putting in your best work, going against the best of the best. And that's a big, big advantage here. Defensive tackles, you're running against great offensive line with the Philadelphia Eagles. Just another chance to get better here over the next couple of days. Coach Stefanski had talked, and I think the way it sounds and the plan that basically he has in place is he is more concerned about the joint practices. He thinks that's where his team is going to get the best work. Most likely we're going to see, backups Thursday night in Philadelphia when the actual preseason game is played, which is just fine with me. If that means I get to see more DTR, all about seeing some more DTR. And then we'll see eventually what the plan is for the Browns' final preseason game against Kansas City Chiefs, which will be, obviously, a little bit of time after that. But the Browns head down to Philly for some time in Philadelphia. Obviously, Andrew Berry goes back, see some old friends, actually gets to see his twin brother, who is now employed by the Philadelphia Eagles. So, Browns do lose, obviously 17-15. Definitely some negatives. Cade York, question mark. You lose a player like Jacob Phillips, obviously not a good thing. Didn't run the ball as well. Didn't stop the run as well as the week before. So, but look, when you're a coach, you want to be able to have things out there. You want to have your onus, things to work on. So that will be the case here. But, there were still plenty of positives. The young kids really, really starting to look pretty good here. And that's an important thing here because they're going to be key depth pieces for this team in the 2023 season. I am Jeff Lloyd, your host here. This is now my 7th season with you all on Locked On Browns. Really, really geeked up. I really, really think the potential of this team here in 2023 is unmatched. And I think what they did in 2020 was special. But I think the potential of this team in 2023 is to be better than that team was in 2020. Appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. Join the everyday crowd by make sure you're subscribed to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Locked On Browns is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns.